Welcome along to the Matchbook Euros podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey. We're joined for Matchday 2. The games are coming thick and fast, that is. And I'm joined by Mark O'Hare and Adrian Clarke. And Mark, I have to say, every Euro game you seem to put on, there's goals, there's excitement, there's drama, a small bit of VAR drama, but not too much. Belgian game aside, it's been a pretty decent start to the Euros, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Goals are up. Obviously, we've just got a 10-game sample, but if you took that average goals per game output, it would be the highest scoring Euros for quite some time at the minute. I think we're sort of above 2.7 goals per game at the minute. 4 of the 10 games have been won by a margin of 2 goals or more. We've only had 2 upsets, but both came in the same group. A goal in every sort of first half game, which is quite unusual so far as well. And, for all the sort of talk about the captains being the only player to be able to talk to the referee and anyone else would get a yellow card, we've only actually had 1 card for dissent so far, and that wasn't for sort of rushing to the referee to sort of complain about decision. It was just Conrad Lima getting very peeved off last night with a decision that went against him. So it's been very good, very enjoyable so far. There's not been too many games where I've kind of got bored in between. It's been thoroughly entertaining, and sort of hopefully more so as we reach match day 2 when things start to heat up a bit more.
Yeah, and even the low-scoring games, Adrian, seem to be exciting. Like the Slovakia-Belgium game, I thought was brilliant. 1-0 Slovakia score, underdog story, one of the biggest odds upsets. And Mark's tweeted the exact factual ones based on price. But yeah, it's been an enjoyable week or so.
Yeah, I'd echo what Mark said, really. Yeah, I think we talked, didn't we, on the preview pod about the lack of prep time for coaches. And I think that maybe that's come into play with the number of goals that we've seen. We've seen some good individual defensive performances. Obviously, Dragusin, I think, for Romania was excellent. Biol in one of the previous games. Was it Slovenia? Yeah, Slovenia. Some good individual defensive performances, but I've seen a lot of fragmented defenses, a lot of issues, particularly in the early games with teams struggling to sort of close up space between the lines, etc. I think that is down to a slight lack of prep time. So unfortunately, I feel that the longer the coaches have with the players and the teams, the less excitement we might get, because they get their claws into them and they work out how to get their shape and structure correct. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Lots of attacking football, and I hope it continues. But there's just a part of me that thinks it might level off a little bit.
Okay, yeah, and the lads have been firing in a few winners, and Mark, more importantly, landed his best bet. Adrian's best bet is to come tonight. We are recording this on Tuesday morning, so Tuesday night's game, I won't spoil it, but check out insights.matchbook.com. It's available there now. Adrian's best bet for Matchday 1. And before we get going here on Matchday 2's podcast, if you hit that like button and subscribe completely for free on our YouTube channel, best way to keep up to date with all the content, not just for the Euros, but obviously Royal Ascot as well. This week we recorded our first podcast that is in your podcast feed now, and do check out the Matchbook Bet and Exchange for all Euro 2024 markets. We will invariably be the best price on the odds checker grid. Let's start with Croatia versus Albania. We'll go to you, Mark. So we're going to cover around 8 games. We can't cover them all given fixture list and recording before some teams have played, but Croatia are 149 favourites to Albania, who scored the opening goal against Italy, 8.4. The draw is 4.6. We've got both teams to score currently set, and no is the favourite at 175. And the Asian handicap line sees Albania get 1.25 goal head start, and the goal line here is 2.5. Mark, take it away with your pick for this opening game.
Yeah, so Croatia obviously on the back foot a bit after their defeat to Spain. I actually thought they played pretty well for the most part of that match, and I think the 3-0 scoreline was quite an unfair reflection on how the game sort of played out, really. Spain started strongly, but Croatia wrestled back momentum quite quickly, actually, after the first sort of quarter of an hour, and looked pretty good. And then they get opened up straight down the middle, and Spain hit them with 2 sucker punches. A great finish from Fabian Ruiz, the second one, but the first one was thoroughly avoidable, really, from a Croatian perspective. And then Carvajal's header before half-time makes it, almost game over before we sort of go in for your half-time oranges. So I know game state was in Croatia's favour, but I still thought it was interesting to see that they were the aggressors in possession. They had more ball than Spain. That was even the case before Spain struck twice, actually. And if you look at the sort of the key metrics from that match, Croatia were incredibly wasteful, but they were sort of the better of the 2 teams on many different metrics. And you think of some key moments: Cucurella clearing off the line, Petkovic having his penalty saved. They're two obvious moments, but they missed 3 big chances overall. They had 16 shots, 1.59 expected goals from open play, 10 efforts from inside the box, all bigger and better figures than Spain managed themselves. So they shouldn't be beating themselves up after that performance, I don't think. So clearly the pressure is on now, but I think this is a presentable opportunity for Croatia. Albania obviously in a similar situation after their first game, but yeah, I thought they were pretty brave in that defeat against Italy. Just a bad beat story from me. One of my sort of pre-tournament selections was Albania under 0.5 goals in the tournament at 6-1. So seeing that bust after 23 seconds was quite amusing. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we learned a huge amount more from what we already knew about Albania. They defended pretty heroically at times, but just lacking a bit of quality really throughout. And just poor defending, I think, to allow Italy straight back in after you score 10 minutes later. A free header for Bastone and a poor clearance as well led to Barella's goal. So, Strugosha had to make a couple of good saves in the first half as well. But I think second half, Italy, like most of the big teams, have sort of laboured a little bit and allowed Albania back into it. But, Raheem and I having a good opportunity later on, but it wasn't to be. And ultimately, they are that sort of well-drilled, hard-working, high-intensity team, but just lack that quality, I think, in both boxes. So Croatia should have the edge here, as the odds suggest. But to sort of find a way to get them on side, I think you just package under 4.5 goals in alongside a Croatia win, and we're getting 1.8. And I think that's a very nice price, actually, because if Croatia come anywhere close to the standards they set against Spain, I suspect they will win this game with a little bit of room to spare. So obviously we get the 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, 2-1 and 3-1 on our side too. And, anyone who's seen Albania or watched them across the last 2 years or so, since Silvino came into charge, they're not involved in high-scoring fixtures. So I'd be surprised if that one escalated. If you did want a bigger price or an odds against offering, just chuck in Croatia most corners, which gets it to about 2.15, I think, on the bet builder. But happy to just take the Croatia to win and under 4.5 goals price.
Okay, yeah, seems a decent jump from 1.5-ish to 1.8. So we're locking that in as our opening bet for Mark. So the guys picked 4 games each. Mark's second game is Scotland versus Switzerland. Let's take a look at the betting that we have on matchbook.com. Scotland very disappointing in their opening fixture. Scotland 4.5, Switzerland odds on at 194. The draw is 3.7. Both teams to score again. Favored no in these markets. Be interesting where those lines go depending on teams throughout the tournament. The Asian handicap line, Scotland getting a half goal head start. Goal lines 2.5. So Mark, it's important sometimes not to overreact to the opening game fixtures, but I guess in some ways it's sometimes important not to underreact. And if the eyes are telling you that these two teams are separated quite substantially, maybe there's still a bit of value in the market.
I think there is, and I'll sort of detail that a little bit shortly. But I'm going to be with Switzerland here, and the price is going to trickle out from about 1.9 to 194 in the last 12 hours or so. And I'd be interested to see where that lands, because I think if you get Switzerland close to evens, you have to take them. So Scotland, as you say, were desperately poor against Germany. I know a few people would have fancied them to get a result in Munich, but I think most of us were quite taken aback by how poor they were. And look, I've got no major qualms with the tactical setup. It's what Scotland have been doing for a long time now under Steve Clarke. It's what they're accustomed to doing. But the application was pretty poor, and just looked totally bamboozled by Germany's players playing between the lines. And it's kind of continued what's been a poor run of form for Scotland now. They started Euros qualifying with 5 wins from 5, including that deserved victory over Spain at Hampden. But it's now 1 win in 10 across all games. That was against Gibraltar. And when they've played some classy opposition, they've been outclassed. So 5-1 against Germany, 3-1 England, 4-1 France, 4-0 Netherlands, 2-0 in the reverse against Spain. Now, the bulk of those were friendlies, but they've conceded multiple goals in 8 of the last 10. The only teams they didn't were against Gibraltar and Northern Ireland. So, I don't expect them to dramatically change tact here based on what happened in the first game. I don't expect them to go chasing from the first whistle. 4 points should still be enough to get you through. But the pressure's on, whereas Switzerland have that bit more wriggle room, really, after what I thought was quite an impressive first hour and final 10 minutes against Hungary. It should be said Hungary weren't at the races, just like Scotland weren't. But I think the Swiss really seized their initiative and largely impressed, despite sort of fielding quite a surprising 11. And the market absolutely loved Switzerland. There was a big move for them overnight and leading up to kickoff in that game. And so when I saw the team sheets, I was quite puzzled by it, to be honest, because there was a few shockers, a few surprises in there, but they justified that support and sort of showcase that sort of tournament experience and that quality as well. They have got a team full of quality players playing in across Europe's top 5 leagues, and I guess dispelled all the sort of myths and theories about the behind the scenes nonsense with the coach in the last 6 months as well. So in terms of the odds, and this is what it comes down to, obviously, but for me, it's a relatively straightforward selection here on Switzerland at 194. They went off at 215 against Hungary. So 194 against Scotland, when Hungary are 235 to beat Scotland on matchday 3. I know there's a lot of numbers sort of chucked at you there, but it just doesn't add up quite. You know, if the market's pretty firm on Hungary beating Scotland and the Swiss were 215 against Hungary, then surely they should be short of on 194 to beat Scotland. I know it's not must win, but you know, if Scotland do come out to try and play, then there's a reason I think to get the Swiss on side, that quality, that experience, and of course a possible overreaction or underreaction to matchday 1. But I think there's a lot of reasons why we should be with the Swiss here.
Yeah, tough to disagree. It's a better podcast when I disagree, but I think 215 off against Hungary and 194 against Scotland seems, it doesn't seem enough of a reaction there. So let's lock that in. Switzerland.
The price is good. Yeah, the price is good. Yeah, the price is good on Switzerland, no doubt about it. That for me is the obvious pick, but Scotland have to show reaction.
Yeah,
they have to. And Scotland in the past at major tournaments have been able to show a reaction sometimes after a shocker and sort of prove the doubters wrong. So, you know, Steve Clarke's record in competitive games isn't bad. Based on what you saw of them against Germany, you give them no chance in this game. But it's just a part of me that thinks, they're dangerous outsiders, if you know what I mean, because of the mentality of the Scots in general. They've got a lot of fight about them, and I expect to see it in the game.
Definitely expect a reaction. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Hungary, obviously, even a bigger game if that is for third place, but maybe that 3 points might not be enough. Who knows? Denmark versus England. Adrian Clarke's dying to get stuck into this now. Let's take a look at the betting that we have on Matchbook. Denmark 6.2, England 174 favorites now. A little bit drift this morning. Draw 3.7. Both teams to score no. Once again, 178 favored. The Asian handicap line, Denmark get a 3/4 goal head start. 2.5 is the total. Yeah, Adrian, what did you make of Sunday night? So just so you know, Adrian, and you'll have a good insight here. So in Ireland, we have the choice. We can either watch BBC's coverage or our own RTE's coverage. And when you turned on BBC and you had the likes of Ferdinand and Micah Richards on, you would be saying, no problem, England are playing great, particularly when I went on at half-time. You go on RTE, they're saying it was one of the worst opening day performances ever. So I'm sure the answer is somewhere in the middle of between the two of them, I'm guessing.
That is interesting. Yeah, I did think they were a little bit more positive than maybe I was. The first half an hour, I thought England were very good and completely deserved the lead. Great goal. The two star players of the performance for England combining. Saka, I thought, was great in that first half, and Bellingham was definitely the starter, and he played with a bit of swagger, didn't he? But what we then got was trademark Southgate in terms of sitting on his hands, not reacting. Playing it very, very cautiously. And look, it allowed Serbia to come on the front foot. It allowed them to push England back, and England couldn't get out their own half. I liked it when Harry Kane wasn't getting touches in the first half because he was pinning the centre-backs. It was leaving all that space for Bellingham and co to go and do their thing. Second half, wanting to get in the game, he keeps coming short. It crowds up everything, and we couldn't get out of our own half. We didn't have the pace. If we couldn't get Saka in, England couldn't get out, and for Southgate not to see that, I thought was extraordinary. I thought it was nailed on that Anthony Gordon would come on the left hand side, which had a defender in Trippier being asked to play really advanced, right back, asked to play left wing, with Foden coming in field, not really impacting the game. They had to change it on the left, and they didn't. So yeah, that's it's a shame. I think from an England perspective, hopefully, they'll learn from it and improve and maybe they will in this game. Then they kind of, I think they need to improve. They could drop points against Denmark if the performance level doesn't improve.
Okay, yeah. In terms of bet wise, Adrian, all right. I guess going into it's England wise, are you still with them a little bit at the current odds, or what?
I'm still with them. I'm still with them, Dan. Yeah, of course I am. Look,
come on, England.
They should improve. Yeah, it's coming home. Look, I think that look, we see it there from Owen, Shawberto, Carlos, but I genuinely think that is the key to unlocking the problem there. If Luke Shaw comes in, plays as an attacking left back, no problem, because then Foden coming in field, won't matter so much because you've got the width down that side. You can stretch opponents. I think he has to come in for this game. And if he comes in, I wouldn't change Foden. I just felt in that game, it was crying out for a little bit of speed down the left. Now, England has still got class players. Denmark are not great. They had a brilliant individual performance from Christian Eriksen, who's handed a free role. Really interesting. Obviously, at Manchester United doesn't get that because Bruno Fernandes is the number 10. He's a liability, Christian Eriksen, defending these days. He just hasn't got the mobility. He can't track runners. But give him a free role inside the opposition half and say, just get on the ball for us. We can see what he's capable of. 7 key passes, 5 shots. He's a danger man. But I would back Declan Rice to sort of snuff him out in this game. Apart from Højlund, there's a slight lack of pace in the Danish side. So, they've got to be wary of Højlund's pace over the top for counters. But in general, a little bit like Serbia, I don't see a massive threat in behind from Denmark, who are a good team, experienced team, but a little bit pedestrian. And they struggled. Their back three struggled a little bit to handle the Slovenian Perspora and Šeško. They're a bit of a handful for them. So I think that Kane and co will have a little bit more impact in this game. I'm going to back England. I'm going to pair. Obviously, it's 1.71, so it's too skinny really for me to put up. So let's pair it with under 3.5. This is Gareth Southgate's England after all, and if they do get themselves a lead, then you can almost bet your bottom dollar they're not going to go for 4 or 5. I don't see an Iran sort of route coming against Denmark, who are pretty, well schooled, aren't they, at tournament level. The last 5 meetings between Denmark and England have all gone under 3.5 goals. 7 of the last 8 matches for Denmark under 3.5 goals. 6 of England's last 8 matches under 3.5 goals. Obviously, England only had 5 shots in the game. It's a bit embarrassing that Croatia had more touches inside the opposition box than England in that contest as well. I'm not sold on Trent Alexander-Arnold in central midfield either. You can offer a lot on the ball, but there's more to that role than just spraying passes around. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a change there. So yeah, I think England will have too much quality, but it could be another tough watch. It could be a sort of a laboured performance. It's a slight improvement on what we saw against Serbia. Probably looking at a 2-0 England here. 2.3. Nice jump from 1.71 on England to 2.3. I like that. That's a big old hefty leap, and that's why I picked this bet.
Okay, let's lock it in. England under 3.5 goals, 2.3. That's Thursday, 5 o'clock in the same group. At 2 o'clock beforehand, we'll know the result of Slovenia versus Serbia. And this is one of Mark's bets here. So Slovenia are 5.0, Serbia odds on 1.9. The draw is 3.6. Both teams to score pretty much a coin flip. There, the Asian handicap line, Slovenia get half a goal start. 2.5 is the total. Mark, take it away here.
Yeah, firstly, I want to get goals in this game. I think it's really all to play for here after the opening round of games. England will have been expected to take maximum points probably from all 3 games, really, or at least get close to it. And I think Slovenia, Serbia, Denmark will realise that they're probably playing for second or third, really. Slovenia have the advantage having a point against Denmark already. So I think both teams will give it a good go, but particularly Serbia, knowing that they need a result now after losing their opener. I thought they were very respectful to England. They adopted a much more kind of conservative approach in that first game, at least until the opening goal went in. And then even when England, seized the initiative and allows Serbia possession and territory, they didn't really open England up enough. And I was a little bit disappointed with them in terms of what they produced, considering the calibre of players they have at their disposal. A couple of sort of pot shots from distance, but never really sort of threatened England properly in the penalty area. So, but we still know that this is a team that's more than capable. Lots of dangerous players in that team, and normally Serbia just produce goals. Coming into the tournament, they'd see 9 of 12 go over 2.5. 5 of those went over 3.5. They'd conceded in victories against the likes of Lithuania, Jordan, and Montenegro. And in fact, they've only kept 6 clean sheets now in the last 27 internationals. 6 of the last 13 opponents have scored at least twice against them. And I think back to the World Cup, actually, when they started against Brazil, produced a very similar performance, I think, against England as they did to Brazil. Were quite respectful, stood off a little bit, and still got done late on rather than early on. But in the second two games, they really kind of came out to play, and we saw the Serbian side that we have come to expect, really quite erratic defensively. But going forward, they do have penetrative players who can cause plenty of problems. But yeah, I kind of they conceded 8 goals in their World Cup campaign across just 3 fixtures, and I don't think they have resolved those defensive deficiencies either. So I think Slovenia, from their perspective, should be fancying their chances here of at least hurting Serbia. We saw Šeško sort of finding his range a little bit against Denmark too. Wickedly good efforts from distance. The first one, how he managed to get that power just from that back lift is quite astonishing, really. He's such a good player, and I expect him to cause the Serbian team problems. So, I think they are also underrated, actually, coming into this game. It's 2.08 for Slovenia with a half-goal start. As big as 5.0 to win, which just feels a little bit too generous. This is a team who, admittedly, the schedule hasn't been overly taxing, but they've only lost twice in 22 matches, stretching back over 2 years now. They've only failed to score once in the last 21. They scored in each of the last 13. They did beat Portugal in a March friendly. And I think we saw against Denmark as well, they can be robust and they can be organised, but they do have something in that final third as well. So the 2 bets I like here, Slovenia plus half a goal at 2.08 and both teams to score at 1.95, because I do think if Slovenia score, which they're very well capable of doing, I think both bets are big runners there, because obviously you can't sort of dismiss the Serbian attack, but defensively and in terms of discipline, I find them difficult to trust at short prices.
Okay, let's lock that in. 2 split stakes, both teams to score, and Slovenia with a half-goal start for Mark. Spain versus Italy, and this is Adrian's pick here. Really excited for this game. Both teams have a win going into it, so that might influence the market somewhat here. Spain 2.24, Italy 3.85, draw 3.35. We'll get to that in a second. Pretty much a coin flip again on the both teams to score market. Asian handicap line sees Italy get a quarter goal head start. 2.5 is the total. Adrian, I briefly touched on, obviously both teams are pretty much assured of qualification, really, I would say. I guess they have the 3 points in the bag. Maybe another point will do it. Could they both get a point here?
Yeah, you're leading me in nicely.
I'm trying.
I find it hard to split them, I've got to be honest. The draw is quite short for draws, but 3.35. It's out of the 3 possible outcomes, it's the one I favour the most, I have to say, because of the game state of the group. Obviously, a draw gets them into the next round. They both, face weaker opposition in the final game as well, so it could be a little bit of a shootout for top spot potentially. I thought they both played pretty well actually in the first games. Obviously, Spain capitalised on some quite poor defending from Croatia. In general play, the Croats created more chances than Spain, which was a slight concern. Unai Simon had to make 5 saves. Croatia, I think, had 16 shots. So that's a slight negative on Spain. So that puts me off, I must admit, of backing them to beat Italy, because they did give up some pretty decent chances. They rode their luck a little bit at times. But then you look at the other end of the pitch and you see the performance of Lamine Yamal and the midfield, I thought, purred pretty nicely. Fabian Ruiz in there alongside Pedri and Rodri. I mean, that's a very, very good unit. And it was fascinating that they had less possession than Croatia. It's not the normal Spain. So De La Fuente is looking to use that speed of Nico Williams and Yamal on the counter, and it kind of worked in this game. Italy will probably boss the ball, maybe more than the Spain, I guess, in this game, based on what we saw. Although they played Albania, didn't they? And that was probably always going to be a possession-heavy performance from Italy. But I thought they looked after the ball well. I thought their midfield unit was excellent. Barella, Jorginho, and Fratesi. Chiesa looked a bit sharper than he has done in club football. Scamacca linked the play really nicely as well. And they have that threat, don't they, from set pieces? Got a lot of big guys, and they scored from one of them. So, I look at the positive, negatives with Spain giving up chances, but they've got that speed and that excitement going forward. Italy, I see as being very solid, as they almost always are. I was looking at their run up to the tournament, or including the first game. So they've had clean sheets in 4 of their last 6. Obviously, they conceded against Albania from their own mistake, from a throw-in early doors. So really, if you can almost scratch that off, keep 4 clean sheets in 5, just a goal conceded against Venezuela. Now in Venezuela game, it wasn't this defense. It was pretty much an Italy B team in regards to this group. So I think they're going to be a tough nut to crack. I don't see them being opened up by Spain on a regular basis. So yeah, it's a tough one to call. I looked at Italy for a long shot because I think they can be really competitive in this game. But I'm going to go with the draw here. I can't split them. 3.35. Yeah, it's still a nice price, and not an unlikely outcome.
Yeah, particularly given both teams will relatively settle for that. You would think Poland versus Austria, Friday, 5 p.m. I just love the games are coming. Thinking fast. Copa America starting this weekend as well for all you punters out there. Poland 4.2, Austria 2.04. The draw is 365. Both teams score 186. Bit of a drift on that this morning. The Asian handicap line, Poland get a half goal head start at 192. The goal line is 2.5. The drift was 175, now out to 186. Adrian, your pick and for this game here.
Yeah, not an easy game to judge because Austria just played France. They're probably the best team in the tournament, and I thought they acquitted themselves very, very well. Good standard match, I felt it was, and it wouldn't surprise me if for me, Austria looked like a team that if you just said that match was a semi-final or a quarter-final, I don't think that would have been a stretch. So I think that they do have the capabilities to mix it with the better teams in the competition. Austria, I think they proved that. Obviously, it's the first time they'd blanked in 17 internationals as well. So they normally have goals. You would look at it and say, where was the creativity from Austria? But again, it's hard to judge that against France. Creating chances against one of the best teams in the world is tough. But it did feel like everything was built around their press, which was impressive, as we knew it would be under Ralph Rangnick. They really got after France, caused them problems, and won the ball in good areas. And from there, created some good opportunities. Obviously, should have scored when Baumgartner went through 1v1. I can't quite get my head around him missing that. And if he doesn't miss that, they could get a draw. Obviously, Mbappe missed a 1v1 as well. But yeah, so there's a lot to like about Austria. But there's a slight concern about the creativity. We'll find out more in this game because Poland won't have as much of the ball, will they? And the pressing will be less of a thing for the Austrians, who, by the way, haven't beaten Poland since 1994, which is a slight concern because I am backing them here to win and over 1.5 goals. It's a nice price, 2.58. If you fancy Austria, who are, strong favourites to win this game on Matchbook, if you just take out the 1-0 win, it jumps nicely to 2.58. Obviously, Poland did all right against the Netherlands, scored a nice set-piece goal. They have scored in 8 of their last 9, Poland, but without the ball, a pretty, I'm going to say, average Netherlands side created 21 chances and really should have scored several more goals than they did. If Poland had conceded 4 or 5 in that game, it probably wouldn't have been unfair. So that's my concern about Poland. I like Zalewski and Zielinski down the left. They were a little bit better going forward than I thought they might be without Lewandowski. But I think they're the weakest team in the group. I do, and I think that Austria will shade this game. So yeah, I'm going to go with Austria to capitalise on the chances maybe that the Netherlands spurned, and for their pressing game, just to maybe be a little bit to their aggression and their team unity and the pace that they play at, to maybe be a little bit too much for the Poles here. It's a big game for Austria now. They need to get something on the board. They've got the Netherlands to come. They're going to go for it here, and they're not going to leave anything. They're going to leave everything on the pitch. I've got no doubt about that. The Austrians, especially with a tricky last game to come. So for me, this is a kind of a must-win for them, and I think they will win. But Poland will have their moments, I'm sure. So yeah, 2.58 Austria and over 1.5.
Okay, yeah, Adrian, very impressed with Austria. So is the market, as producer Ryan alluded to there. Their outright price pretty much unaffected despite losing against France. And speaking of, we'll go to them against the Netherlands. This is a repeat of the qualifying game. Of course, Ireland were in this group as well as Greece. Netherlands 3.35, France 2.3. Draw is 5-2 or 3.5. Both teams to score, yes, 174. Great having that the favorite in the market. Back to normality. The Asian handicap line, Netherlands quarter goal head start, 2.5 is the total mark. It's a big game on paper. Realistically, is there a bit of a gulf between these two sides?
Yeah, I think so. I think the big news, which we probably need to sort of reference straight away, is Kylian Mbappe, who we know broke his nose, as it was confirmed by the French FA. On Monday night, they said he'll have to wear a mask when he returns to action, but Canal Plus have reported on Tuesday morning that he is going to miss this match against the Netherlands, and it remains to be seen whether he'll be fit to play Poland on Matchday 3. And the market has reacted accordingly, as you'd expect. France were generally around about sort of even money to beat Netherlands before the game against Austria. They're now, as you say, trading around 2.3 on Matchbook, and there's been a little bit of a drift in the last hour or so. So that might continue. But I was pretty comfortable backing France odds against with or without Mbappe. So I'm more than happy to be pro-France, knowing he's not available, even at those kind of prices and on that drift. So you might be wise to sort of leave it a couple of hours before getting involved, because you might get a bigger and better price. But the drift does mean there's more opportunity to be with France, and we can be a little bit more pragmatic in our approach. And therefore, I'm going to put up France -1/4 on the Asian handicap, which is what, 196 right now on Matchbook. And that just means if the game ends in a draw, we only lose half of our stake, with the other half returned as a push. Basically, if Netherlands win, we don't, obviously we lose our stake, but if France win, we get paid out at almost evens. So it just guards against the draw a little bit. I think this group has been the most entertaining so far, actually. France's game against Austria was really absorbing, quite pulsating, watching the Austrian press. I thought they provide France with plenty of headaches. They're just such a real nuisance to play against, but unfortunately they lack the sort of standout quality to sort of make their moments matter when they did create a couple of fleeting opportunities. But I thought France were the better team. They looked physically quite imposing. There was energy, there was pace, and power, and I think you could see the world-class quality there, even if they didn't sort of release the handbrake as England did either. So and I looked at Netherlands. I actually thought they made a bit of a pig's ear out of that game against Poland. 14 shots in the first half, just so incredibly wasteful. There's plenty of flair, there's plenty of sort of flashy forward play, but they just lack conviction at times. And I'm still adamant that the system doesn't suit the tools that Ronald Koeman has at his disposal. They've got the best collection of centre-halves in the competition, and they've got arguably two of the best right wing-backs in the competition. Another left wing-back who's just played in the Champions League final, who wasn't even included in the original squad on the bench, yet they're going 4 at the back and just not utilising the talents that you have. So, yeah, in that 4 defensive line, I still think the individual ability was there, but I thought they looked a bit flustered at times, a little bit ropey when Poland came forward. Poor defending through the lines, and I thought it looked pretty fragile when the pressure was put on by a Polish side who were missing a number of their key players. Set pieces, they looked a bit dodgy as well. So, overall, the XG was only marginally sort of shy of what the Dutch produced, even if they were outshot 21-12, which isn't a great endorsement of this Dutch team. So I was sceptical of them coming into the competition. That scepticism remains after the Poland game. And I think with or without Mbappe, this is going to be a real tough test for the Netherlands. Ronald Koeman's record when facing elite sides since the World Cup has been poor. You mentioned those 2 qualifiers by France, 4-0 and 2-1 defeats. Croatia and Italy have beaten them in the Nations League. Germany beat them back in March as well. So quite happy to oppose them. But that Asian handicap approach just gives us that security against the draw if it does end all square. But as I say, maybe just hold fire for a couple of hours and you might be able to get a bigger and better price.
Yeah, it's already drifted to 199. Excuse me, on Matchbook. So yeah, the market is reacting in real time. Pretty fun to watch. But yeah, wherever that lands, Mark thinks there will be a bit of juice in that. Adrian, take it away. We're going to cover Belgium versus Romania Saturday night, 8 p.m. kickoff here. Quick look at the betting. Belgium 1.5 favorites, Romania 7.6, draws 4.6. Pretty much coin flip on the both teams to score are now leaning towards no. Asian handicap line, Romania getting 1.25 goal head start at 184, which seems big after the match day 1, and 2.5 is the total. What did you make of these sides' respective opening games?
Wow, none of us saw Romania. Romania's one coming,
Unbelievable.
you know. Yeah, like you know, in the preview pod, we talked about Ukraine, and we thought that was, you know, that was almost certain win, and I think most people did. But yeah, backed by a lot of supporters over there in Munich for the game. They put in a very spirited performance, didn't they? Didn't have much of the ball, less than 30%, but when they attacked, they really attacked with conviction, with numbers, and with, you know, excellent penetration. Yeah, they carried a real threat. Obviously, Dragusin played great at the back for them as well, the Spurs player. So yeah, they've got off to an absolute flyer. But I'm not backing them to win 2 games on the trot. And looking at the market, you know, the big gap between Belgium and Romania with the prices, it feels as if the punters out there are looking at this maybe similarly to myself. They've obviously got the Slovakia game to come. And you know, it's a nice fallback, isn't it, for Romania if they don't get anything out of this game. So I just wonder, can they go again? You know, is it going to be after the Lord Mayor show? That's where I feel it might be. You know, they've still got limitations. They've still got a lot of inexperience in terms of playing players that are at elite club level. You know, Belgium's team is full of players that, you know, got guys that are in the Champions League. Ukraine didn't really have that. You know, there's 1 or 2 in there, and the goalie was one of them, and he had an absolute stinker, didn't he, Lunin? They were helped by that. But yeah, I think against a much more experienced, a team of pedigree like Belgium, they might struggle. Belgium, obviously, just disastrous result, but they created enough to win 2 games, didn't they? In the match, Lukaku, you know, he had one of those nights. He still had 2 goals disallowed. He still stuck 2 in the net, and he was unlucky, you know, that they were disallowed. He missed a lot as well, of course. Lukaku, by the way, his XG was more than the entire Slovakia team in that game.
And just on that, the disallowed goals wouldn't have counted towards that either, would they have? So
no, exactly. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, and it was the handball one for me.
Harsh.
I just think it's ridiculous. Yeah, I get it, but for people wanting to disallow goals for a flick of the finger, you know, out wide, 50 yards from goal, I can't get my head around why you want goals disallowed for that. He didn't mean it. It didn't really impact the move. You know, it's an accidental part of the game. That for me was really harsh on Belgium, who were generally unlucky. They created lots. Was the first defeat in 15 matches for Tedesco. Anana had a good game, breaking into the box, carried a real threat, didn't he, in the air. Obviously, Lukaku had loads of chances. Trossard could have scored. Bakayoko could have scored. Yeah, I think with fire in their belly, and there has to be fire in their belly, they could win this quite comfortably, actually, Belgium. I think they'll score goals. Look at the players they've got. You know, Doku. I know Doku messed up for the goal, but still carries a real threat. De Bruyne. They've got a superb team, and going forward, not a superb defence. But yeah, I think this could be a really exciting game because Belgium have to go for it. Romania obviously do carry a threat on the counter, so I'm going to go for Belgium to win and over 1.5 goals. I don't see this being a 1-0. I wouldn't put it past Romania to score, but I think Belgium can get 2, 3, 4 in this particular match. So that's where I'm going. If you want to be a little bit more risky than I'm being here, you could go Belgium and over 2.5 goals, and it bumps the price up to 2.3. So there you're taking out the 1-0 and the 2-0. So that's something else to consider if you want something the right side of even money.
Okay, Belgium over 1.5 goals. The official play 1.8. With Belgium question, we might get to at the very end there on that. Let's move on to long shots firstly. And Mark, you sort of gave this a big up, so anyone who's really intently listening will know which one of these bets I think you're going to put up.
Well, I was very, very close to putting Georgia up at 4.7 to beat the Czech Republic, but we're talking on Tuesday, and we're talking before we've seen Georgia play their opener against Turkey, and I'd rather sort of get an eye on that before committing and having a swing at that. So yeah, I'm going to revisit that Slovenia game against Serbia and just back them to win at 5.1, which is my long shot. Individually, Serbia are undoubtedly the stronger suit of the two nations, but I think Slovenia are more streetwise, they're more robust, there's more organisation. which I think can count for a lot in tournament football, especially in these circumstances where they have the upper hand after match day 1 with the point on the board. Both teams basically fighting for a qualification place behind England. So, that could play into their hands here if Serbia do try and come out and play. And as we know, they can be a little bit reckless in their approach when they do release the shackles. They can be found out in transitions and counter-attacks. And, this Slovenia team does have a threat about them. It's not just Benjamin Sesko. There are other players of promise in that team, and I think they will hurt them in transition. So, I'm hopeful we'll get a bit of a game on our hands in this one. And Serbia odds on just does not appeal. I've got Slovenia closer to a 3-1 shot at best, really. So I'll give them a go here at matchday 2. Denmark were about 1.7 against Slovenia. They're 2.5 favourites against Serbia on matchday 3. So Serbia around 1.9 to win this match just feels much too short for me. They should be odds against.
Okay, really like that. Really confident selection for the long shots. Adrian, this is a game we haven't covered yet. Germany versus Hungary. And obviously Germany were so impressive. Hungary, I guess, a bit disappointing. So
I'm chucking in a bit of a wild card here. I like Mark's one. I also looked at Italy and over 1.5 goals against Spain because I'm backing the draw, but I could see Italy potentially winning that game. You can get that 5.4. I think it's a far more even game, Italy-Spain, than maybe the market is suggesting. So, there's two other ones. I've gone for Germany and Hungary, and I've gone for the draw. 6.8 on the draw, which feels like a massive price to me. I know that Germany was superb against Scotland. I know that. I saw the game. Couldn't take my eyes off it. Really impressive. But how impressive were they? I don't know, because Scotland were shocking. They were abysmal. And this is a Germany team, okay, albeit in friendlies, but a Germany team that in the past season has drawn with Ukraine and drawn with Mexico, lost to Austria, lost to Japan, and lost to Turkey. They're not averse to chucking in a disappointing performance, Germany. And we don't know, how much of it was them being brilliant, how much of it was Scotland being woeful. It didn't lay a glove on them. What I will say is that these two met 2 years ago in the Nations League, and Hungary beat Germany 1-0, and they also drew 1-1 in the return. So there's a little bit of a form line there. At the last Euros as well, Hungary got a 2-2 draw with Germany. So three matches unbeaten. Hungary in not too distant past against the Germans. So that is something to consider. I think that will give them confidence and heart. Hungary were poor against Switzerland, not quite as poor as Scotland, but pretty poor. But when they got themselves going after half time, I thought they carried a real threat, should have scored 2 or 3 goals, really, missed some good chances. And I think they're far, far better than what we saw of them against the Swiss. They like bloodying the noses of the big boys as well. They've taken a lot of scalps under Marco Rossi. And they've got players that can score goals. We talked about that before, Salah, Varga, and obviously Soboslai. The manager, I don't know if he saw his quotes. He said, "We play Germany in 4 days. I dare anyone to bet 1 Hungarian forint on us. As of today, that looks impossible." A forint, by the way, is worth 1/5 of 1p in British money. So it's not a lot. He's daring anyone to back them to beat Germany. So I'm not backing them to beat them, but I will back them to maybe nick a draw, because Germany don't need to win this game. Hungary kind of will probably look at this. Well, it is a must not lose for Hungary because they've got Scotland, and they will look at that and say, well, we can beat Scotland. So if we can nick a point against Germany, we'll take that, and we'll probably get through to the next round. So yeah, based on what I've said, I've talked myself into having a little swing at the draw here. Germany versus Hungary, the draw 6.8.
Okay, seems quite big considering the case outlined by Adrian there. Let's go to match day bets. Mark, you're 1-0 so far. Confident start to the Euros. What is your best match day 2 selection? No pressure.
Yeah, I liked what I saw from Croatia despite that defeat against Spain. I expect them to control the game against Albania, and they should be capable of sort of finding a way past their defence, and who didn't look overly convincing at times against Italy. And I think it's interesting to note that Albania kept clean sheets in all of their qualifying matches in Tirana during qualification, but didn't keep a clean sheet away from home, and they haven't done so in a competitive match for quite some time now either. So whilst Croatia might lack a bit of clinical edge at times, they will create opportunities as they did against Spain. It's just can they get one over the line, or at least two? So I think they will, and therefore I'll back Croatia to win and under 4.5 goals at 1.8.
Okay, and the same price for you, Adrian, on your selection.
Yeah, look, I'm going to back Belgium to bounce back. I think that they created so many chances in that game, and obviously had egg on their faces at the end. I feel that there was no luck on their side, Belgium. They've got so much quality going forward, and I think there'll be real fire in their bellies. They know they have to win this game, and I think they can win it well against a Romanian team who surprised everyone by smashing Ukraine. But can they go again? Have they got the quality to replicate what we saw against Ukraine, as against a Belgian side with a lot of Champions League experience, a major tournament experience? I just don't know whether they can replicate what we saw against Ukraine. I think the golf in class will come to the fore here, and Belgium fired up will get the job done. You could back them over 2.5 at a better price, Belgium, and over 2.5 goals. But I'm going to play it a little bit safer, Belgium, and over 1.5 goals, just ruling out the 1-0 at 1.8.
Okay, yeah, that's 1.8 for both. And speaking of Belgium, we did get a comment in about Belgium, just in terms of their price at the moment. They're around 30-ish on the Match for Betting Exchange. Mark, Adrian, I guess over to you. Is there any team you're sort of looking at the moment, or is it a case of just sort of wanted to see a bit more action there? Maybe Mark, to you first. Is there any team that you're sort of keeping an eye on after the opening games?
Not massively. I guess the two teams who I've got massively wrong in the first round were playing against each other, really. High hopes for Ukraine and very few hopes for Romania. But I just wonder whether those two dreadful errors that led to the opening two goals, two brilliant goals in fairness, but may have clouded our judgment a little bit on maybe sort of putting the boot into Ukraine a bit too much, and Romania sort of giving them a little bit too much of a sort of leg up, really. But in fairness, in their application across the board was superb. They looked really sort of sprightly and put Ukraine under plenty of pressure too. But yeah, I guess we'll learn more about them against Belgium on match day 2. But from a Belgian perspective, just very, very frustrated with their performance against Slovakia. They did have opportunities, and luck definitely wasn't on their side, but just some glaring tactical errors, I thought, from my perspective. Tedesco choosing to start Doku on the right when there's a 37-year-old right back on the opposite flank, and to give him 45 minutes before swapping just felt like a really poor decision. That was the obvious one coming into that game, was that matchup, and we had to wait till the second half to see it. So there's a few things they probably need to work out. I think from a longer term outright perspective from Belgium, I'm not particularly warm on them, and that's down to the defence. And I think we even saw Slovakia put them under a bit of pressure. They conceded, multiple double-figure shots, and corners were racked up too. So I think there's things they need to work out defensively before they can be considered as a longer shot. They still are hugely, very, very short price just to qualify from the group. So the market still expect them to go through. But so whether they win the group or not, because if they don't, they could be facing Netherlands or France in the last 16. So I'd probably leave it. I've got no major sort of opinions on the outright market right now.
I think defensively, I wouldn't back Belgium to go too deep in the competition, but it's should be getting out of this group, and we should see a massive reaction. On the back to lay, I was just looking at the prices just now, and the one that really jumps out is Switzerland now, probably 80 to 1. They've beaten Hungary. They're big rivals really for second spot. They've got Scotland to come. Mark's backing them to beat the Scots. So that puts them on 6 points. That puts them in a strong position, doesn't it, to qualify in number 1 or 2 position. And from there, we know that the Swiss, didn't they beat France on penalties in the last Euros? I think they did. So they are capable of grinding out a draw in the knockout maybe, and progressing that way. And all of a sudden they could find themselves in the last 8 where you could lay them off. So that's who I'd look at in that market at the minute. Yeah,
Germany draw with Hungary. Of course, they just need a draw in the final game to top. So there you go, Adrian. It's all stars are all aligning. 80.0 for Switzerland. I'll have to have a quick look at that price. It does look a little bit big, but yeah, my thanks to Mark and Adrian. We'll be back for match day 3 as well. And then Miguel will be joining us after the groups, and we'll have probably a little bit longer podcast just to deep dive into those outright markets again. But really enjoying the tournament so far. Insights.matchbet.com if you want a full recap of the bets throughout the week, because there's a lot thrown at you there. But very much enjoy having you with us. And my thanks again to Mark and Adrian. We'll be back to preview Matchday 3. But until then, enjoy the rest of the football. Bye-bye.